What's up, everybody? This is Vincent Tung, the Wandering Warrior. Now, I've got some of you guys asking me, how come traditional Chinese boxing or traditional Chinese boxers don't tuck their chin and keep their hands up, right? They're for the most part known for keeping the head upright, keeping the hands out, keeping the hands out, keeping the hands out, not shelling up. Right? Why do we not see that happen? Essentially, it boils down to a different context and a different set of advantages that you're trying to gain, right? First and foremost, you may not be against just one person. You may need to shift targets and trajectory, right? It's not just a duel. It's not just a one-on-one necessarily. It could be a brawl. So that's number one. Number two, we're talking bare knuckle. You don't have gloves. The coverage is not as great. And this is bare knuckle, elbows, fingers, grabbing, grappling. This is not just purely punching each other with gloves on. Alright? Another thing we gotta consider, again, like I just said, there's wrestling involved. If they clinch you, your head's already down like this and they clinch you, you're gonna find out real quick what that did to your posture. There's sweeping involved, there's throwing involved, there's ankle picking, there's single legs. If you are heavily weighted on the front there, how easy would it be for you to avoid getting grappled? With arms like this, not ready to frame, not ready to get underhooks, right? Not ready to press off, to grapple in return, to clinch, but like this. Okay. With all that weight in the front leg and that reduced peripheral visibility, how good are you at dealing with people circling you using kicks, right? Calf kicks, knee kicks, shin kicks. You gotta think about these things, right? And let's just say while the guy's fighting you, he decides to pull a knife and start stabbing you. This gonna protect you? I don't know about that. You gotta think about it. Also consider the fact that most of our top level boxers, they don't sit here like this. This isn't a static thing. This is something you do when you need to shell up. But if you don't need to shell up, why are you doing it? Right? These are all things to consider. So, me and my martial arts brother, we're going to demonstrate a few scenarios for you guys. I'm going to talk you through them, and hopefully you come to understand why in the traditional Chinese boxing meta, this type of stuff was not often done. Many boxers, especially if they're new, they're doing it wrong anyways. A lot of times as they shell up, they are actually tightening up their shoulders, raising their shoulders and causing a whole lot of unnecessary tension. This slows down their movements, this tires them out, this makes them less responsive, and they lose a bit of range as well as power when they're trying to punch out of that position. And again, at more advanced levels of boxing, no one really just sits there the whole time like that. One of the things that old-timey pugilists and Chinese boxers understood that we sometimes forget today is that without hand wraps and gloves, it's a lot easier to break your hand on someone's skull. So, one, your head is a lot less vulnerable without the gloves on, and two, without the gloves on, you also get a lot less coverage. So these are a few bare-knuckle considerations we don't always think about these days. Another obvious one, before we even get into grappling and things like that, is kicking, right? You can't deal with kicks quite as well if you can't see them coming properly. And you can't catch kicks, which is a major part of the Chinese martial arts. You can't catch these kicks as effectively if your hands are shelled up like that, right? With your hands a little bit outstretched, just enough, you're able to intercept, catch, and punish them for kicking you a lot more effectively. Now, another aspect to this is if your hands are up and your chin is down, you're shelled up, it's pretty hard to not telegraph your kicks because you have to come out of that shelled posture in order to kick powerfully and effectively. If your hands are a little more open, you can start hiding motion in motion and stringing together your kicks and hands a lot easier, a lot more seamlessly. Now, this is one of those tactics that high-level boxers, MMA fighters are starting to tap into, and traditional Chinese boxers were using quite a bit
projecting your intention, whether it's fakes, feints, subtle movements to try to tilt them, any psychological edge you can get before you engage. If you're shelled up, you're not really giving them much, and you're probably not going to get as many big openings as you'd like before you've engaged. Now, adding to that is visibility. When you've got your hands up, your chin down, and especially if you got gloves on, your visibility is partially obscured. You're losing some of your peripheral vision. Now, if you know that all of the attacks coming your way are going to be punches, if you know everything is coming out of those shoulders, through the arms, into you via fists, that's fine. This is a duel with specific rules, with specific expectations. Okay. But if you're dealing with hands and feet, elbows, knees, you're dealing with wrestling and striking, you're dealing with potentially weapons or someone trying to sucker punch you from the side, losing your peripheral vision is pretty bad. Because you're losing peripheral vision, you're going to actually lose some tactical mobility. It's not that you're less mobile, it's that you may not know to move, you may not know you're being circled for that fraction of a second, and every second counts in a fight. And this also speaks to the ethos and the meta of Chinese boxing systems and styles, where that mobility and ability to strike first and to create a bridge is highly valued. And so shortening your effective reach doesn't really make sense. Now, when we talk about traditional Chinese boxing, we often focus on Shenfa, body method. We focus on Jia, frames. We focus on Shi, postures. And postural integrity is very important. You see here, I can almost resist a clinch just by having good posture. On the other hand, with bad posture, or in this case, chin down, head down, right? I'm very easy to snap down and unfortunately into a knee or a variety of other attacks. And that's another thing to make note of. In the traditional Chinese boxing meta, there's a lot of wrestling. In fact, traditional Chinese boxing should not be thought of as boxing in the modern Western boxing sense, but rather as fighting, wherein a specialized tool known as quan, fist, is heavily utilized. But that fighting as a whole is this messy mix of dirty wrestling, clinch work with some hands being thrown. Now, even if you have no intentions of using any of the wrestling, you just want to strike and offline them and beat them up, that's fine. But having your hands a little bit more outstretched, sort of that 90-degree angle in the elbows, allows me to frame and push off more effectively. Having them tucked to my body, shelled up, and then my chin down really makes me vulnerable to grappling. Going back to the lower body, if I am having my head forward, chin tucked, I'm going to bias my weight a little bit more forward generally. Having a more forward stance is not wrong, but especially with the lowered visibility, it might hurt me when it comes to dealing with leg kicks, such as calf kicks, or sweeps to the front leg. Having my chin up allows my weight distribution to stay more in the middle. I can even keep it a little further back. I can then deal with sweeps and leg kicks a little better. I can add all this up, and it allows me to more seamlessly move between wrestling and striking. And
It's just like, what are we even doing here? Right? But if I have my hands forward, I actually have a chance.
this ability to go between striking and wrestling ranges is extremely useful when I'm dealing with weapons, such as knives. I need to be able to grapple, but also deal with the striking, which is in this case the stabbing. Right? So this is a survival skill, and it's crucial in the traditional Chinese martial arts.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm a big fan of boxing. I actually enjoy Western boxing. I enjoy watching it. But I also understand that it's what happens when you funnel fighting into only punches, and only certain punches, with gloves on, with rules, in a ring. And it's a one-on-one. When you're talking about free fighting without those limitations, just like we're seeing in MMA nowadays with the UFC, Bellator, ONE FC, not strictly sticking to Western boxing as their main base of striking. And I believe, and this is just my prediction, but I believe we're going to see a lot more movements either get reinvented or hopefully integrated from the traditional martial arts. Whether you're talking about karate, silat, or the various qunshu, kuntao, Chinese boxing styles, I believe we're going to see more and more of that as MMA develops and people start trying to get an edge on one another. In any case, if you guys like that breakdown and that sort of explanation of what is the traditional Chinese boxing meta and why does it cause people to kind of deviate from what we now think of as standard striking, which you should know by now actually is a specialized thing for a specialized context. If you guys enjoyed that, please hit the like, share, subscribe, the bell icon so you can see more of this stuff pop up, and please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. It's your support that really helps me continue the wandering, delving into the folk martial arts, and extracting what's good about them to present to you guys. Alright, so anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me on my journey. I salute yours.